Good morning. So this is the player recap and reflections of last night's Dragonslayer Barrowmaze session 6. So quickly, we only this was an interesting short session, which is fine. It's I don't mind short and sweet. I don't mind the session being what it is, right? So for those who are trying to follow along, we have, let me get my map. I'll try to, maybe I'll, so again, I don't know the actual, but here's the map of what we've done thus far. And by my numbers, we were in this room looting it at the end of session 5 when we heard crashing of jars and everything outside this direction. This is west. Okay, it's not flipped. I think we're not mirrored here. I can read it on my side. So we opened with us looting these burial actuaries chambers. There's about 200 of them, and we're going through them quickly when we hear crashes in session 5 and we fade to black. So session 6, just so you know, takes place in this room. And ultimately, from this room, we end up down this hall, and in this location is it. I mean, that's literally what occurs for the most part in the session. So we end up in this room 19 on my map, 20, and then we ultimately navigate ourselves back up and out to the toward the main entrance when we are also accosted up there on the way out by a random monster. So according to our MC, so that's again for those who are trying to follow along with Barrowmaze. That is really all we did last night. We went from that room into that hall, chased a party mate who was sent on a failed save, running into the darkness east, away from it. And we made chase, and we ended up in a fight with a zombie there. And then we went around that corner, went around the corner and fought with a zombie. And we found there a dead end with some interesting things. And that is where I set out to investigate what looked like a mortared up hole. It turned out to be, I believe, gray ooze by the brilliant description that Eloy gave us. Eloy, I like how Eloy doesn't just tell us what it is. He lets us to work around it, and he describes things well enough. I knew what it was the minute it poured out of the hole, that it was gray ooze, and the way he described the weapons being destroyed by it, and the way it used, it punched out with kind of a proboscis. Is it proboscis? Is that what he said? I can't remember what he said. Anyway, I knew immediately that we were dealing with gray ooze, right? Or green slime, gray ooze, whatever. So so we encountered this early. We encountered so we ransacked the room. Nagion, we shut the door from the noise, and Donald guarded while we looted all those actuaries we could and got about 150 silver pieces. We then cracked the door and sent Nagion, the thief, into the darkness with his dark vision as an elf to investigate what was causing the crashing of the clay jars down the hall. And in that particular area, he ran into a poltergeist, is the best way I can describe it, some kind of ghost or poltergeist. He failed a save, and it sent him screaming and running east. And all of that I showed on the map was given to us as he streaked away into the unknown. So he literally turned and ran east into the darkness, into the unknown. So that portion of the map was given to us as he ran for his life, screaming, and I made chase. So the Cyclops, as we heard him kind of run by, screaming for his life, I, having dark vision, told Donald to stand down. As Donald was looking with a torch, I told him to stand down, and I would make chase for our friend because I had dark vision, and it would be easier for me to go. So as I pursued him, and he ran into the darkness, and I began to catch him up, Eloy mapped out that region for us as we encountered it at full sprint, in a way. So he could have not mapped it for us because we were sprinting, which normally when you're running, you don't map, right? Especially when you're fleeing a monster, you're not supposed to map. Now you can flee back what you already know, but if you turn and flee in a dungeon crawl, generally you don't get the map, right? You'll have to backtrack to get the map. So that was kind of cool though that he did it because it that's what we're doing. But it would have been interesting if he had said you're running east, you don't know how long, you don't know how far, and we would not know, where we were at, which would have been kind of cool, right? But we're not thinking that way. We're thinking literally we're exposing the map as we move. So it's not a criticism. It's just it's an option. So anyway, but as I'm catching him up, because he's out of his head, he's screaming and running, he's not thinking. I see a creature come out of the darkness from around a corner, and it engages Nation trying to tear his throat out, basically a zombie type feral creature. And we make melee. Fortunately, I yell for help, and Donald and everybody come crashing down, and Donald puts arrows in it, and our fearless cleric Todd, right? So for this session, I should backtrack. There was myself, the Cyclops man. There's Dell, the thief, elf thief. There is Donald, the human ranger, and then there is our cleric. Last night, Todd can only do Wednesdays, so on the nights we can only do Tuesdays. Todd can't make that, and David generally can. And on the Wednesdays, Todd can usually make it, but unfortunately, David can't. And David is our assassin, but he was not there last night. And we also have, I think, 5 NPC hirelings and torchbearers. And of course, they play a role too, and they pile in. We very quickly dispatch this zombie. We go around the corner, we investigate, find another alcove, a bricked up wall, and a mortar pit. And as I walked over to investigate this mortar, it shot out at me with surprise and killed me instantly. And it killed me. He knocked me to -2 unconscious. And I love the way Eloy's handling this. They conclude combat and everything before we check on my status, right? So I'm not going to wake up in the middle of the fight and be back in the fray. I'm out, which is I like, right? Because it's number one, it's less complicated. Now it becomes a war of attrition with a party. If I couldn't wake up to help and somebody else goes down, then the numbers, it can become a war. It can become a death spiral for a party if you can't wake up in the middle. But I like the fact that, my character they have to wait to investigate to see if I'm alive, right? Or they could, I guess, investigate in the middle of combat and see if I'm alive, right? So that would be an option to get me back on my feet. Dell's character went down against the zombie. The zombie did manage to bring Dell's character unconscious, -2. As Tarlin aided him and brought him about, he made his death save and woke. And Tarlin was bandaging his wounds when I want to say 2 more creatures. No, that was later. Anyway, we then went around the corner as a group and investigated. That just didn't seem right. You seem to think that there was another wandering monster that came on us there. No? No? Okay. I just wanted to double check. For some reason, I thought there was another monster that came upon us there while Tarlin was. Oh, there was. Yes, the gray ooze. As he was, because we'd gone around the corner and we were investigating that while he was working with Tarlin. My character during the same 10-minute window, I'm investigating that. Somebody's looking at this, etc. Bang, the ooze hits me. I'm out. They're up fighting the ooze. They are able to waylay the ooze in about 3 rounds, which is great because very, very dangerous creature for level 1s. And then they were able, I made my death save when they investigated me, and I'm up and awake, and they bind my wounds, and I'm up to about 3 hit points, I think. And we finished investigating this alcove at the end of the hall, that little 20-foot square. And we all agree we're pretty beat up. Nagion is about, I think he has 2 hit points. My character has 3 hit points. We're feeling pretty ragged, so we decided it's time to head back to Helix, out of the Barrowmaze, backtrack out of the Barrowmaze and back through the Barrow Downs, which is like a 4-hour hike back to town before dark. And as we're evacuating using our map, we can readily evacuate. We are waylaid by two more wandering monsters. And again, the gray ooze was a wandering monster as well as the creature that I'm not certain if the poltergeist from session 5 was random or if it's part of that area. I think it's random because I thought we'd gone through that area at one point. by the mongrel beast room, I think. Can't remember. So anyway, so this entire session, hour and 15 minutes, took place in the room that we ended in that room in session 5. We picked up there in session 6. We ended up running down that hall into that dead end, and the entire session took place in that 80-foot window, right? 2 rooms, one an open room, the other a doored room. And then we backtracked out. We encountered, we fell upon more of these ravenous undead zombies. One very stout, a HD3 creature, as we learned through Tarlin's failed attempts to turn it. Twice Tarlin, our cleric, attempted to turn it and failed. Tarlin, disgusted with his god, Elcoit, something like that. He threw down his holy symbol, and as we were evacuating, we managed to waylay those zombies, but not before. Again, it was very dangerous. We were lucky that no one else succumbed. We didn't lose any henchmen in this particular session. Last session, they lost 2 henchmen. I brought a new henchman when I arrived last session. So we evacuate. We go back to Helix. Nagion picks up the holy symbol that Tarlin had discarded. Typically, right, he scoops it up as Tarlin turns his back and walks away from it. He kind of pulls it, and you can just see the thief pocketing his holy symbol. And my character is somewhat at this point determined to sway Tarlin to continue his oath, but to Saint Yig, the god that of law and order, the god that I I'm aligned to. I am a fighter who had wanted to be a paladin, since I couldn't make the paladin cut, but I am devout. So I'm a fighter, but I'm devoted. And so again, as we come into town, the first thing I do is grab Tarlin in kind of a headlock, and I drag him. You can see, I kind of drag him to the chapel before services, and I go in and I pay 5 silver for myself and 5 silver for Tarlin as a tribute to St. Yig. And I take a seat in the pews, and I wait for, and I talk to the brother Alkalite, who tells us about that there's going to be a service soon, and I entice Tarlin to sit with me and engage it, as my character is somewhat deluding himself that that Tarlin is still a man of faith. It's just you got the wrong god. Tarlin may not care at all. I mean, Tarlin may literally turn into a fighter, which is fine, right? But my character would like to see him continue to be a man of oath, a man of faith, a man of God. But he's just got to recognize there's only one God to follow. And so we have a great, role play in the town as Nagion goes immediately and gets drunk, or goes and begins to embrace the alcohol, so to speak. And Donald, as service begins, the bell rings and the service begins. Donald comes in the back of the church, but stays at the very back, watching and taking in the service without speaking to anyone, which is cool. So I think we're all realizing maybe that was a tough one, right? Two of the main characters could have died and perished last night, and so my character's a firm believer that I am only here because of that. My job for St. Yig is not done yet, right? So you can imagine I'm a Cyclops man fighter who literally had wanted to be a paladin, and so he's devout, but he's not a cleric, right? Not a zealot. I'm not preaching to people, but I'm devoted to Yig for cause, right? As the acolyte and I have a conversation, and the acolyte says, "Why do you do it? It's dangerous. Why do you do it?" And then I said, "I don't do it. Of course there's treasure, and of course there could be wealth in it, but I do it because it is my calling. I have to rid the world one zombie at a time, if that's my job." So there was a little interplay that we learned why Fex does this, right? It's not just for treasure. It is because he feels it is his duty, to investigate these areas, and to, if I have to, face the darkness of Nurgle, right? Nurgle. So anyway, it's great. We have a great session. It's very short, hour and 15 minutes. Now we got together sooner, but we talked beforehand and just chatted as friends do. And then we uh, started. So we lost probably 15 or 20 minutes chatting beforehand, which is fine. Not that it would have mattered. Our characters were in a situation there. We were on a time limit. It was roughly 3 p.m. in the afternoon at the end of session 5. We knew we only had a few hours left before we could hike back before darkness fell. So we knew this session we were going to probably end up spending much of it in Helix, probably. And but having Nasian basically almost killed, and then myself within a few minutes later almost killed. I think we all realized, as beat up as we are, and Donald, when we get back to town, suggests we take time and we all recover and heal and get right and hire some new hirelings, etc. So Donald is in a way our fearless. Donald is in a way he is our troop leader. He's the one who's the natural, not by way of giving orders, but by way of thinking ahead, by way of organization. And every group has that guy, right? The wheel, the spoke. I mean, the what is it? The wheel, and that all of our spokes are connected to, so to speak. And so it's cool the way Donald says, let's take more time here and everybody get healed up and rested. And so these things are meaningful as Donald's character manifests itself naturally through play, but then manifests itself in how Donald expresses his character as well as Dell's character and Todd's. Todd's now in a crisis of faith. My character is what he is. He's very much a literal, right? There's not a lot of metaphor. There's not a lot of banter. My character is mission oriented to some degree, very literal, and very much cyclopsian in a way, according to the descriptions in the book. And so I appreciate that. It's kind of fun to play this race of character I've never had a chance to play before. So it's great fun. And yeah, so for a minute there, I thought, oh, there was Fex. I'm really digging Fex. But this is old school. They die, you roll out one of your other characters and you go for it. But we were both fortunate. We got past our death save and were revived ultimately. But outstanding. We did not have the actual coins to provide funeral services for our two dead. So we cannot burn gold for experience in that way. So we have to, that is not something we literally transact because we just don't have the wealth to do that because we would gladly do a pyre for the dead and burn that for XP, that gold directly for XP if we had the gold. And we just don't. We're going to need it for other things. So this is another subtle difference between Dragonslayer and other OSRs. Gillespie provides these ways in which you're not only earning XP, but ways in which you can earn almost double the XP. If you carouse and spend the gold, you lose the gold, but you get XP for carousing. So you risk your gold to carouse, but you're guaranteed to double that XP. So if I have 300 gold, which is 300 XP, and then I carouse and all my gold is spent, I get a bonus 300 XP. So it's clever. And then the pyre, you can spend gold to really double that XP in a way, right? It's a way of spending your gold for XP. A lot of games just say you must spend the gold to get it at all as XP. And so this is not completely unheard of, but they're narrative ways that keep the game in context, right? They're contextual ways that are rules. And so we can abide by those. And there's no asking of questions. Hey, can I do this for XP? It's defined there for us. And the GM can remind us of it. The MC can remind us of it, etc. So again, these are subtle things that are different in Gillespie's work that make Dragonslayer its own thing. And like I've said before, these things don't have to be completely new or innovative. It's innovative in the way it presents itself. It's innovative in the way it is written into the kind of overall lore of Dragonslayer, right? If you want to look at Dragonslayer is a world without definition. It's defined by subtle allusions to the races and the classes and to the descriptions of those things. There's a world there that's not totally defined, but those things allude to a greater existence of a world, right? Because the one thing not in this book is a setting, right? But the setting, like old D&D, is kind of alluded to through its descriptions. Dwarves are a thing, right? And dwarves with great constitution gain a bonus to their experience, those are rules, but how they're written are either going to be administrative and dull, or they can also be done in such a way that it's interesting reading, right? It's interesting as it creates world building without creating a hard and fast setting, right? And then Barrowmaze provides us our setting, right? We are characters in that particular setting for this particular campaigns. I'm loving it. I've said it before. I won't continue to harp on it. Eloy does a masterful job at this thing. We all are veterans. We've been doing this a long time, and we appreciate it now, I think, more than ever. And we're doing it with the right, I think we're doing it from the right, forgive the term, spiritual place. We're doing it from the right frame of consciousness here, right? We talked briefly before session about the dimensions of role play, as that has come into our conscious, has come into my consciousness literally in the last couple of days, in which I've made a video remarking on it. I have an opinion, but I don't have all the information, and that's I would say firmly our Dragonslayer games, based on what I understand about the dimensions of gaming. We're doing this at between 2 and 3D, right? And we make no bones about it. We're okay with that. That's what this is about. And this is part of the thing I wanted to, make clear in my last video. All the dimensions are doable. And some games you're going to want dimension 2. And there's going to be other tables and other types of games you're going to want to push dimension 3. Or Dark Age of Man, Dimension 4, right? I don't expect my old school D20 sessions to be like Dark Age of Man. There's a reason I picked Dark Age of Man to play when I want to play that type of thing. And there's a reason I play D20. Role play, there are groups that could probably do Dimension 3 or 4, no matter what they do. But I do believe there are certain games that make it difficult, defy, certain techniques. I didn't say you couldn't, but make it difficult or defy it, or ultimately say that's not why we are doing this game, so to speak. So I would say last night was a comfortable and relaxing and joyful two-dimensional role-playing experience, or 2.5D, whatever. I think Dale said it has about 2.5D. I don't know, but it's interesting. Again, I don't yet know, and I will maybe have a chance to talk to the gentlemen who are doing this and having this actually attempting to do 4D role playing. I want to say 28 millimeter YouTube. Is that his channel? 28 millimeter something. Pardon me, I don't know all of it. But they're attempting to pursue 4D in their gaming. And again, this apparently comes from, as Eloy informed me, this comes from a book written by Shawner on Drive Through RPG about hard role playing. So interesting, right? Dell and I have been doing it for years. I've been doing it long before that, but I was doing it in a way without talking by myself. I was doing it in a group, trying to adhere to being in character first and only talking in character, etc. So many of us have pursued this as the way we role played for decades. However, it was not a concerted effort by a group to achieve the task, right? And that I quit a long time ago, trying to distill every experience through my preferred experience. And I just played, or I would say, well, this is the way we're going to game this game today. And I'm fine with that, as opposed to attempting to, get everything into this certain position, right? Anyway, fascinating. And it is interesting to think, well, what if we can talk about our sessions, not in judgment, but in indeed fact? Let's say, for instance, those of you who war game, on the back of the box, it'll tell you how many players advised, roughly how long a game takes, the difficulty of the game, right? Solo ability or solo difficulty. But what if on the back of a role-playing game book, it also says highlights ideal for two-dimensional role play, right? On the back of a book, our book, for instance, there would be a standard code in the role players guide, role players, right? 1 through 4 dimensions, and ours would be highlighted upper third, right? Between, third three, almost the four, maybe all the way to four. It would be highlighted in green if it was a right? If it was like a meter, ours would say ideal for between 3 and 4, right? And that would be a cool way for people to, when they go out to buy a role-playing game, all right, not only does it tell you what game systems it use and what genre it's in, and it's powered by the apocalypse or whatever, but it might also say 3D on it, ideal for 2D play, 1D play, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a judgment. It's a way of helping people identify, oh, this is going to be a game that fits right into what we like to do, how we like to do it, right? Um, as opposed to saying that everybody should be trying for 4D role play. I don't believe everybody should be. I don't believe every game is best for 4D role play. But there's no reason we can't acknowledge there's such a thing. And we can't then say, hey, what is it we're trying to do? I'm going to go on Facebook to a big group and say, hey guys, I want to run some Dark Age of Man tomorrow night. I'm looking for 3 players. Anybody interested? It's going to be this, and I'm thinking we can do this at 4D. And people would say, oh, I'm not going there. And then someone would come show up and say, okay, if you're going to do 4D, I'm in, right? It's just a way, it's another way of categorizing for role players, right? So not bad, not bad. Everybody out there have a wonderful and great day. Bye-bye.